This is Viewpoint with Chris Pierce. Today's program has been underwritten by Body Auto Real Estate, providing personal and professional real estate service since 1987. For all your real estate needs, call Diane Body Auto at 402-690-4769. Linda McDermott with Fricke & Associates is an independent insurance representative helping you with personal and business insurance as well as your long-term care, life, health, and retirement needs. Come join the conversation at PoliticalInsidersReport.com, Nebraska's source for local politics. And now, here's our host, Chris Pierce.
Welcome, good morning. Welcome back to Viewpoint. Glad to have you here. I know that everyone's anticipating our much-awaited voting rights bill and legislation show, but unfortunately, Senator Jansen, who wants to be part of the show, wants to talk about some of the things he wants to do. Unfortunately, the legislature just didn't let him do that, and we don't want to do it without him. So appreciate Senator Jansen being willing. We will get him back on here. So what we've done is last minute. Big thank you to the man next to me. If you remember our original show, we talked about gun control. One of the things that we want to talk about is how it affects our city, especially in our North Omaha area. And unfortunately, our good friend Councilman Gray had the flu and got sick that day. So we decided to bring him back because a lot of things he wants to share and I think are important. We wanted to bring him back, and this gives us a great opportunity. And I want to welcome Councilman Ben Gray, Omaha's 2nd City Council District. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Good. So a couple weeks ago, we wanted to talk about gun control, and we had a really good show. I think we covered a lot of points. But one of the things that really was missing was our own neighborhood, our own city, and the effects of guns, gun violence. And you've been working on that for a long time.
Very.
So why don't we start with that? Let's talk about just your experience and from well, I don't want to say many years because you're 30. I understand that.
Yeah, 30.
But let's talk about
plus 30. But yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about your experience on how you've come into it, your understanding of it. Let's start from there.
Well, first of all, I think in terms of dealing with gun violence, we have to recognize that when we're talking about youth gun violence, we do have some people that do have automatic weapons, and that's where I think we need to have some strong discussions, because we've got to take into consideration two things. One is we have a country that, whether we like it or not, likes guns. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we have a country where there are probably 3 times as many guns per household as there are anywhere else in the world.
And that's something that we did cover. The actual number of guns has increased.
Yes.
But the number of households who own all those guns has decreased.
Yes.
And that, to me, was an enlightening fact to me, that I thought it was the opposite. I thought as guns were being created and owned, so were households, but it wasn't that. So are we seeing that here in Omaha as well?
I think we're seeing the same thing in Omaha. We're seeing more. We're seeing the people who do like guns they're purchasing more guns. The ones that don't want guns, and ones some who had guns, Chris, are taking them out of their homes now because they recognize what statistics have shown us for a very long time. And the statistics have shown us that when you have a gun in the house, it's more likely that gun is going to be used against you by a robber or someone in your own family or in your own house, as opposed to you fending off some sort of a burglar or robber or whatever the case may be.
Now, you brought up a good point. You're talking about how people are kind of getting rid of their guns.
Yes.
One of the things we talked about in that show was the gun amnesty program. Started out as payment for guns. It's kind of transitioned to, and some of our conversation was whether or not that really worked, and are the guns that we really want off the street coming off the street. And I said it in our show. I like the purpose and the goal of that program, but in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, we're not getting the automatic weapons. I think what we're getting off is what I call dust guns. These are guns that people have inherited from their mother or father or grandfather. And they have no use for the gun. So my question to you, are we really getting off the guns that are committing crimes and hurting people? Are those guns coming off the streets through the amnesty program?
Yes. It's a mixed bag.
Okay.
Part of what you say is accurate, but we're also getting some really getting some automatic weapons that can do damage, and probably in some cases have done damage. We are getting some of those off the street. Now, it's not the numbers that we would like to see. Most of those come you know, when police officers raid or stop a car or stop a vehicle or something like that. But the gun amnesty program, I don't think I would stop it or anything like that, because I think it does. You do get a mixed bag. You get some of those that have been in the family for a long time, and sometimes people don't even know they're there. And then when they're reminded that they're there and we got a gun amnesty program, they bring them down and they get rid of them. But at the same time, we're getting some really significant weapons off the street. Not as much as we would like, but we're getting some significant automatic weapons off the street.
And Aida Mora, the mayor's communications director, was part of the show, and she had mentioned, she threw out the statistics that they've taken off about 900 guns off the streets.
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at that number. To really be effective in reducing gun violence, and let's talk just North Omaha, what's that number need to be?
You know, I'm not sure what the number needs to be, but I think we need to be smart about it. And I think we need to recognize that, you know, automatic weapons are something that we really don't need in this society. If you're a gun collector, that's fine. If you want to have a few rounds of ammunition to go with that gun collection, that's fine. But you don't need a 50-round clip or a 200-round clip or some of the clips that we're seeing. You don't need those sorts of things. And I don't know really in North Omaha per se what that number needs to be, because I don't think people really know how many are there, quite frankly.
So are you saying that, I mean, and I appreciate your honesty, so are you saying that we really as a city, the police department, the mayor's office, yourself, we really don't know how many guns are out there?
We don't.
And there's really no way for us to know, is there?
No, there's no way to know. There's no way to know.
And one of the arguments that that Andy Allen, he was here, he very well educated, I learned a lot from him. What he said that he was saying is maybe to get more guns off the street, just the number of guns, so they aren't, you know, accessible by children, is we should encourage them to take them to pawn shops and sell them and make money from them, because there are people who may need a weapon, would want a weapon for some reason, but can't afford a new one, and it puts used guns into the circulation. Maybe that's a better motivation for people to get rid of their guns that they don't need. What do you think about that argument?
Wow, I would have to think about that for a minute, because I think
it was a different way of thinking. I had not thought about it that way, but could that motivate more people that just have guns laying around to say, you know what, let's get rid of it?
Yeah, but it's going to motivate more people to go in and steal and take those guns and stuff too. So I don't know that that's a cut and dry answer that's going to solve the problems that we're dealing with. I just don't see that right now. What I see is maybe, I don't know that I would have to see how many people would even want to do that, quite frankly, because I think once people own guns and once they like owning guns, the likelihood that they're going to pawn it, I mean, it may happen for financial reasons or other reasons like that, but I don't really think, I guess I'd really have to think about that a little bit.
That probably won't be a motivation for them to...
No, I don't think so.
No more than the amnesty program.
No, I don't think so. I don't think either one of those things are going to, not people who really want to do violence, I don't think either of those things are going to work.
So one of the things we talked about, and I want to get your opinion on, is we talked about, when it comes to the amnesty program, that it is a no questions asked policy. And I thought, Andy brought up, and I also brought up that, what would stop someone who committed a crime with a weapon to turn it into an amnesty program and then got away with it? I mean, if there are, I just seem to have a problem with this no questions asked program. That if I was a criminal and I committed a crime with a gun, the best way for me to get rid of that is through an amnesty, because really they're destroyed at that point. Is there a step that we don't know? I mean, are those guns at all tested, or I mean, is it truly they put them in a basket and then the police department throws them to the fire? Is there something that we're missing? Because that just seems awfully tempting to somebody that needs to get rid of.
No, there are no questions asked, but I think the police department goes back and takes a look at if they've picked up an automatic weapon, and that automatic weapon has the possibility of having been used in a crime somewhere. I'm sure that weapon is being tested.
Okay.
I don't think the police are going to let that go, but to not ask, I think is a policy that has to be there, because if you ask, then you're not. If people can just come in and just drop them off. But if you're going to ask them a whole bunch of questions, I don't think they're going to waste the time, even if they want to, and even if they're not criminals. If you're going to stop and ask them a lot of questions, I don't know that they're going to waste time dropping off a weapon when all they want to do is drop it off and be on their way.
one of the things we talked about, and I'm gonna be a big advocate with you as far as just these large capacity magazines. I'm right there with you. But as you know, I'm a gun owner. I'm a concealed carry. I'm a responsible gun owner. I took training and all that. And one of the things I had to do is I had to go through 1, 2, 3 different background checks. Why shouldn't I be able to own? And I'm not a gun collector, but why can't I have an AR-15, the assault style weapons, as long as I'm obeying the law? Why? Because it sounds like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the things you're an advocate for is we need to get rid of these assault style weapons. Let's say, am I correct in that assumption?
I think we need to. I think there ought to be. I think we ought to explore several possibilities that I don't know that we've explored up to now. Are you a gun collector? If you're a gun collector, then you ought to have a permit to be a gun collector, and then you ought to register the guns that you have. Okay. If you're a gun collector, you don't need a large round of ammunition to go with that gun. So I think those are things that have not been done or not been done appropriately, because I think we need to identify people who are gun owners. I mean, gun collectors versus those who just want to buy automatic weapons. And I think we need to have a much broader discussion about that, as opposed to just the elimination of automatic weapons altogether. Because I think you're going to always have a fight about that, and you're going to always be passing laws, and you're always going to have to reinstitute those laws. You know, I mean, what we have now, you know, the Brady Bill, for example, it sunsetted. We haven't done anything with the Brady Bill since. Do you think
it's back? I mean,
yeah.
But the interesting thing is,
but it doesn't look like it's going to pass.
Yeah, the assault weapons it was created as an amendment, so it kind of got downsized.
Yes.
One of the arguments is that, and I think the last stat I said was about 67% of NRA members support the idea of an extensive background check. But let me put this to you. If there is not a system to effectively have a background check system, because really I think you and I can both agree, yeah, there's background checks, but they're not all that great. There's not a standard.
They're not.
So until then, isn't that argument kind of half empty?
Kind of. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Do you think that if we create a true national background sort of database that was easily available to gun owners or actually to vendors, do you think that could solve some of the problems we have with the wrong people owning guns?
No, because you have to keep in mind now that when we're talking about, we have to talk about what kind of violence you're talking about. If you're talking about the kind of violence in Von Mar, at Sunnybrook, I think it is, Sandy Hook rather, Sandy Hook and Aurora, Colorado, and all. If we're talking about those, that's a whole different set of arguments, because we're talking about people who were, for the most part, probably not mentally stable. And that brings up a whole nother issue about individuals who are mentally ill or have some behavioral health issues that need to be addressed.
And let's get into that when we come back, guys. We're gonna get into that mental illness, and we're gonna talk about how 67% of mass shootings, Ben, I don't know if we'll talk about, were people who got those weapons legally.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that. So we'll be right back. We'll continue our conversation with Councilman when we come back.
and Girls Club of the Midlands.
I've been helping kids like me. Like me.
Like us.
For just $30 a year, I can get
A healthy meal.
homework help,
exercise,
a safe place to stay after school, everything. At one of our 8 clubs. My name is Janelle.
And I am the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club. We are the Boys and Girls Club.
like us on Facebook at BGC Midlands. Cox will donate $1 to the Boys and Girls Club.
5 years, Family Housing Advisory Services has been improving quality of life by helping people achieve housing and financial stability. FAS prevents homelessness, educates homeowners, provides foreclosure prevention options, develops financially wise consumers, offers affordable mortgage lending options, eliminates housing discrimination, and reduces poverty. Programs and services include homebuyer education, tenant services, financial management, tax assistance, homeowner finance, and fair housing. For more information, call 402-934-7921.
Do you know about 211? It's help for an elderly relative or a troubled teen, family counseling, or job training. Instead of hunting for phone numbers, dial 211. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, talk to someone who will find the local information you need. United Way and its statewide partners want you to get connected and get answers. Dial 211 or go online at ne211.org.
Welcome back. We're talking with our good friend, Omaha City Councilman Ben Gray, Councilman for the 2nd City Council District, and we've been talking about gun control, issue that he's very passionate and want to be part of our first show, so we wanted to have him back. Ben, we left our last segment talking about mental illness.
Yes.
And I threw a stat at you that actually I was surprised at. 67% of the mass shootings, and that's the FBI says a mass shooting is when 4 or more people are killed. That 67% of those were guns legally obtained.
Yes.
So let's talk about let's expand just a little bit on the mental illness, because one of the things that we found, and we talked a little bit about it before, is, boy, that's really subjective. You know, who is to decide if someone's mentally ill and should or shouldn't own a weapon? Well, what do you think?
Well, you know, in every single instance that I'm aware of, where the discussion was starting to be had, there were, when we talk about on the military base, for example, or when we're talking about Von Maur, when we're talking about Sandy Hook, or any of those instances, we're talking about people who it was clear that they were in some sort of programming. And in the Von Maur case, for example, the individual just aged out and there was no place else for him. In a couple of other instances, you can tell where people just aged out of the system. In one particular instance, remember in Aurora, Colorado, with the movie shooting, there was a psychiatrist and a person that where he was going to school that said they didn't want him back in the room because he had some serious mental breakdowns and some serious mental issues. So in almost all of those cases, you had an instance where the individual was somehow aged out of the system or was having some issues. It was made aware that he was having some issues. It was found out after the shooting that there were a number of issues. So we have a serious problem with mental illness that we really don't want to address for whatever reason. And what we want to do is we would rather put people in jail at the back end rather than address issues at the front end and provide some stability and help for people that would be infinitely cheaper, infinitely less expensive than the $40-some-odd thousand a year that we put people in jail for. And we here in the state and in Omaha have closed down most, if not all, of our mental health facilities.
Yeah, and I think
so. Where do people go?
And I know Andy brought up that point, and that's not just a Nebraska or Omaha issue. That's an issue across the country where, you know, as he said, the mental hospitals, we've sort of shut those down.
Yes.
So we don't provide that. So let's transition, and let's talk about, why do you think, City Councilman, involvement with our community for years, how does gun violence, gun control, how is that affecting North Omaha? What do you see the root cause of why we have the homicide rate we've had? Although I will say a couple of years ago, we had a spree there. I mean, a lot of us. But, and I've talked to a lot of people, we don't see ourselves as a gang city. But I know that's not necessarily true. So how does gun violence, gun control, how does that affect? How is that in our city? Where do you see that?
You know, I've said, you know, when Willie Barney and I first started the summer jobs program, you know, one of the things I told Willie is that because I come from an environment like that and was involved in an environment like that, and I don't hide it from people that I was, most people don't want to do what they're doing. But Chris, when people don't have any hope, consequences don't matter. And some people, because of the kinds of crimes they've committed and the kinds of people they've offended, some of them want to go to jail. I mean, all we're doing is providing a place for them to stay to get out of trouble. But the fact of the matter is the majority of people don't want to do what they're doing. The root cause of violence in our community, and I'm not just talking about North Omaha, I'm talking about across the board. The root cause is poverty and lack of hope. If we can provide, and that's the reason for the summer jobs. That's the reason for the job training programs. That's the reason for bringing Heartland Workforce Solutions back. That's the reason for some of the other things that we've done, you know, to put things in place so that people can find work and build on that success of starting the work. Because that's what it's going to take to curb the violence. Because violence is caused by poverty, ignorance, and lack of hope. If we can address those, we'd solve a lot of gang problems.
So I want to remind the audience, and then I want to get your reaction. In 2009, there was a report that came out that stated that Omaha, Nebraska has the #1 poorest African American community in the nation.
Youth.
That's true. Youth. I'm sorry. 6 in 10 children in the African American community live in poverty.
Yes.
That was 2009. That was right when you took office.
Yes.
So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yes.
Where are we now?
You know, we're a lot better than we were. I mean, we're reasonably better than we were. We're not where we want to be yet, because...
Are we talking we're 5 and 10, 4 and 10, or are we 5.5 and 10?
You know, we're maybe like 5 and 10. Okay. Something like that. You know, we're not...
The right direction.
We're heading in the right direction, because, and you look at all of our statistics, with the exception of homicide, our shots fired rate is down, our gun assaults are down, our robberies are down. Unfortunately, our burglaries are a little bit up, and our car thefts are a little bit up. But all of the violent crime issues, with the exception of homicide, all of those numbers are down. And the one thing that we know for sure is when we have summer jobs, the gun violence rate went down last year 51%. We cut it in half.
The summer of 2012.
Summer 2012, we cut the gun assault rate in more than half.
Now, do you think that's a result of the jobs program, or was there some other factors that helped that, or?
I think the biggest factor that was involved in those numbers going down were the summer jobs.
Okay. Basically, and let me see if I get the point. Basically, what the summer jobs program, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically, it's an opportunity for one, to earn money, but two is to keep them busy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
but it's more than that. It goes into, because we have some young people who have never been on a job. We have some people who've never seen anybody go to work. You know, so now we have to teach life skills training. We need to teach people how to tie a tie like yours. We need to teach people how to dress and how to present themselves for an interview. We need to teach people how to think about, you know, getting up early in the morning and being on time and being on task and staying there a full day and getting the job done for that day. Those are things that, and once you start teaching those things, because we used to do that, Chris. We used to have a CETA program. We used to have a number of other programs. I had a summer job, you know, so I know what it does. I know what it's capable of doing.
But how do those, let me ask you this, because it's all about money.
Yes.
Because if you can't fund those summer programs, you can't offer them. So is this something that is, you know, does the city participate? That is this grant money? Where is this, you know, where is this funds? And is this something that, and correct me, I think we've had conversations where there's been a couple of years where you weren't sure if you were going to be able to do it, or you had to reduce the number you could offer, correct?
Correct. We did that the first year for sure. We were only able to offer 150 jobs.
Right.
But through some efforts of myself, Mr. Barney, and a number of us who went to Minneapolis and watch them use use community development block grant dollars for summer jobs. We had never done that here. So I came back, lobbied for us to use CDBG dollars to create summer jobs. That's what we did last year. We put $600,000 of community development block grant dollars,
and we being
the city.
City of Omaha, okay.
City of Omaha. We put in, but in addition to that, we asked businesses in the philanthropic community to step up as well so that we can hire more people. So we ended up last year with more numbers than we had at any time previous. We had 850 people that had jobs last year. We're trying to shoot for 1,000 this year altogether, with all of the efforts being made to do that. But there needs to be, you're right about the stable source of revenue. There needs to be a stable source of revenue. And in this particular instance, community development block grant dollars is that stable source of revenue to at least begin the match part of it, because we're asking others to match that 600,000 or 300,000 or whatever it is we're getting ready to put in. Match that so that we can put people to work, because we've seen statistically that it works. We've seen statistically that all of the violence numbers that we're talking about go down. We've seen statistically and there's statistical data available now that shows when people have summer jobs, they are more likely to stay in school. They are more likely to graduate. They're even more likely to go to college. And we're starting to see those numbers bear out.
What is your audience when we talk summer jobs? Are we talking high school age?
We're talking 14 to 24.
14 to 24. Okay.
Yes.
So we're going beyond. So what we're trying to do is let's keep them busy when they're in summer break in high school, but we got to try to keep them busy even after that, because wouldn't you agree, that's kind of a danger period when they're no longer, if we're lucky and they do graduate from high school. And I know that's a big passion. We've got to increase our graduation rates. But once they get to that point, a lot of them don't have college in their future. So that's a dangerous period. So what you're saying is we've extended that to go beyond, about 6 years beyond that.
Chris, we got numbers now, though, that tell us, first of all, in 2002, the graduation rate for African Americans was 49%. In 2012, the graduation rate was 72%. So we're trending in the right direction. We had a year before last, in 2011, we had a record number of African Americans going to college out of Omaha. So all of those things, we're trending in the right direction. We're doing all of the right things, but it's a combination of things. It's a combination of elected officials working together. It's a combination of Democrat and Republican. Okay, on the city council, one of the things I'm most proud of this council in general, the Democrats, the Republicans, and everything in between that's on this council, is that we recognize the necessity for moving summer jobs, for doing things to create jobs, and specifically in Northeast and Southeast Omaha. And all of those things are starting to bear some fruit. We're starting to see the numbers go up with people getting contracts. We're starting to see the number of individuals going to work and staying at work. We're starting to see the number of people going to college and getting past the first year. The first year in college, as you and I both know, is the critical year.
That's right.
That's the party year. Yeah. That's the year where either you learn time management or you don't.
That's right.
It is. So that first year is the critical year, and we're starting to get past that now. So a lot of things are trending in the right direction. We just need to be more. We just need to hone down even a little bit more and see if there's some other tweaks that we need to do to continue to move forward, because we're moving things in the right direction in a lot of different areas.
Okay, we're going to continue. We got one more segment with Councilman Gray, and what I want to talk to you, we've talked about that trend, so let's talk about the new North Omaha. Let's talk about some things that I know that are some exciting things that are happening to change the face of Omaha, to change the perception of North Omaha. So let's get into that when we come back with Councilman Ben Gray.
Omaha, Nebraska, in the country's heartland. Home to billionaire Warren Buffett. And ranked by Forbes as the most affordable city in America.
You've really got a lot of big-time companies here, Fortune 500 companies.
Ivan Gilreath knows Omaha well. He earned his MBA here and launched a successful corporate career. He drove us through a predominantly white neighborhood. Then he took us across town.
This is where the majority of your African-American population resides.
To the other Omaha that Gilreath knows just as well.
This area here has been really the site of a lot of violence over the years, gang violence.
He says the disparity between whites and blacks is shocking and deeply rooted in Omaha's segregated past, when many black families were denied banking loans, higher paying jobs, and equal education. The percentage of black children who live in poverty here ranks #1 in the nation.
You can be shocked and say, oh my God, it's an awful place. Or you can be shocked with feeling like we need to galvanize, and everybody in this community needs to do whatever they can to reverse that cycle. What are you doing over here, young lady?
For Gilreath, that meant leaving a lucrative corporate job to return home to his community as CEO of the Boys and Girls Club, to make sure that kids like 14-year-old Markel Vaughn have a safe place to play and study. This is Markel's home away from home that his mother, Karina, calls a saving grace in her neighborhood. What are some of the challenges that you're up against being a single mom?
I don't want to see anything happen to my son. He's a good kid, you know, and so I'm sorry. I'm thankful, you know, every day that I have him in my life.
In the past 7 years, 5 children from the Boys and Girls Club that Markel attends have been killed.
There is still a need for as many of us African American men who can come back and provide that same kind of influence to these young people that I received at the club.
Like Markel, Gilreath also grew up in this neighborhood. His mother, Willa Lee, raised 5 children on her own, and she's convinced the only way to close the poverty gap is through higher education.
And I sent all of my children to, all of them graduated. I got 3 that went to college and finished college.
What are your goals for yourself? What is it that you want for yourself?
I want to be able to go to college and be able to make it to the pros, but if that don't work out, I want to be a veterinarian or a zookeeper or something.
As an honor student and a star athlete, Markel is well on his way down the same road that Ivan Gilreath traveled. Thelma Gutierrez, CNN, Omaha, Nebraska.
Cookies is about
the big picture.
You have to have a goal.
A big goal.
Something you and your team
want to do in the world.
We choose
where the money goes.
a trip, an adventure,
Helping people out.
helping a lot of people out.
and about the money.
We are responsible for it.
Handling it, managing it,
Tracking it.
doing great things with it.
This is business.
Girl business.
The biggest girl-run business
In the world.
Did you think this was just about cookies?
My son, the Cub Scout, helped raise money to make camping safer.
My son, the Cub Scout, stood up to the school bully.
My son, the Cub Scout, volunteers at the homeless shelter.
My sons, the Boy Scouts, helped clean up after the devastating flood.
My son, the Eagle Scout, helped save a man's life.
My sons, the Eagle Scouts, are defending our nation.
My son, the Eagle Scout, became a doctor,
civil engineer,
police chief,
wonderful husband and father,
state senator.
JoinScouting2012.org.
50 years!
The Boys and Girls Club of the Midlands
I've been helping kids like me. Like us. For just $30 a year, I can get
a healthy meal,
homework help,
exercise,
a safe place to stay after school every day. At one of our 8 clubs. My name is Janelle.
And I am the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club. We are the Boys and Girls Club!
Like us on Facebook at BGC Midlands. Cox will donate $1 to the Boys and Girls Club.
All right, we're back with our friend Councilman Ben Gray, and we've kind of transitioned. We've started out our conversation about gun control, gun violence, and then we're kind of transitioned to what can we do to help that. We've talked about the jobs program and a lot of other things. So this is a perfect time, Ben, to transition to the future of North Omaha, and some of it earned. but quite a bit of it not. Well, some of it not. But I know one of the issues, because I know the city council for years, even before you, have really said, we understand that if we want to get people that live in North Omaha to work, we've got to put jobs in North Omaha. I mean, you know, it doesn't help us when we open a Walmart at 168th and Maple. That does not help for job seekers in North Omaha. But I know that one of the issues is there really hasn't been the availability of tracts of land so that the city who wants to do this to entice businesses, manufacturing, and other things to come into North Omaha, because there's just not the land available. But some of that's changed. So let's talk about how you and the city council has really tried to focus on bringing jobs to North Omaha, and what's worked, what hasn't, what some of the stumbling blocks are that you've got now.
Well, one of the first things we wanted to do was we wanted to bring workforce development back to Omaha. It had been transitioned to the state where it was not working very well. It wasn't working very well for a while when it was in Omaha, but it was working even worse when it went to the state. Now that we have it back, we've got a Heartland Workforce Solutions, and that's in a building along with another organization, Planet Fitness, that we wanted to that came into our community and took a chance and is doing extremely well, quite frankly. But you have to remember that was a building that was closed for nearly 40 years.
That's right.
And the renovation of that building was not cheap, but it also led to the catalyst of some other things happening in that area. The thing you have to do is, especially when you want to get tracts of land, we had a piece that was fairly controversial for a little while, but it was the Ames Locust redevelopment area. In that Ames Locust redevelopment area, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, Chris, and people need to be aware that most of the things that we're talking about are not things that we're going to talk about it tomorrow and you're going to see it, talk about it today and see it tomorrow. These are things that's going to take some time because we have to put in the infrastructure. We have to know what that ground looks like. But it is an opportunity now to put 4, maybe 5 different kinds of businesses on that tract of land, 70 acres, and produce jobs for just across the street from them is a census tract where the poverty is at 50.6%.
Can you describe for people, because people understand numbers, can you describe to our viewers the amount of money that someone has to earn to be considered poverty?
You know, for individuals who are, for a family of 4, the poverty level for them, is, if I remember correctly, I think is $23,000.
So they're saying you're not, let me see if I understand, you're not poverty unless you're a family of 4 making no more than $23,000.
Yes.
To me, that seems awfully low.
Yeah, you
I'm
get no argument out of me.
I'm a family of 2, and I think we're poor. And that just doesn't seem to track with reality.
No.
I mean, what can you do? You can't buy a year's worth of groceries for $23,000. I don't think.
No.
So, who sets those guidelines?
The federal government.
So it's nothing that you as almost, it's not some of the mayor or the
no, they set the guidelines and they set the poverty rates because, that's how Medicare kicks in. That's how, some of these other federal programs kick in based on what they determine is the poverty rate for a family of a husband and wife, a family of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. That determines what the poverty rate is going to be. And the last time I checked, it was around $23,000.
So we're talking about, so let's continue on because like you said, the Lotus project is not going to happen anytime.
It won't happen overnight, but it will happen.
Is it done yet? Has the city acquired all that land yet?
No, and what we wanted to do, Chris, was make sure, because we had a $450,000 grant from the state that they were going to take back, or we were running the risk of losing it by April 3rd if there was no movement that showed we had control.
Okay.
With the passage of the ordinance of necessity that they called it, it gave us the opportunity to actively now use eminent domain if we can't acquire the site through negotiations. Right. But we're negotiating as best we can.
Okay.
But we had to show the state that we were in a position to acquire that property if we had to by eminent domain. So I think we've satisfied what the state wants to see because a number of these programs have not worked in other parts of our state and the money has been given back. And in this particular instance, we were able to demonstrate that we can do that. We took all the steps necessary to put us in a position to do that. So we've got that done, and I would imagine that within the next 30 to 60 days, there's going to be a development in that area. So, I mean, that's going to bring that whole thing to a conclusion.
And I'm going to ask you something, because one of the things that we heard, I think maybe it was last year, a little bit longer than last year, we heard about this Atlanta-based company that was going to come and create jobs in Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I've heard of late, what we read in the paper, what we hear from other sources, is that, boy, it was really celebrated that this was going to happen, but nothing really happened.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the whole story? Is there things that see, that's the thing I find interesting, is that, the public, and I consider myself a well-educated person. I try to keep myself in the know, as you know, but even I don't know the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's out there is the mayor and the city council really, this was a great development. It's an Atlanta-based company. I believe it was to do security.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to create a number of jobs for North Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
They had moved here, but then they're not here anymore. They basically did zero. Is that the entire story, or is there more to that?
No, well, there's a little bit more to the story. I mean, we had set up a certain set of guidelines for that vendor to follow.
Mm-hmm.
That vendor didn't follow those guidelines, or didn't follow a number of them. And had she been here to handle it herself, I think it would have worked a lot better.
So
but the fact that it wasn't anything that the city did.
Okay, because that's what I was kind of going to get to.
It wasn't anything.
One of the things is that the city goes out and tries to bring businesses into North Omaha.
Yes.
But then the city makes it difficult for them to operate.
No.
And puts up, and so they say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to go somewhere else. So that wasn't the case here.
No, that wasn't the case here.
So the city wasn't asking for extraordinary things, but maybe because of where she was located in Atlanta, it was hard for this business owner to really keep up with what needed to be done.
What really needed to be done here for her to get the business off the ground properly, I think she needed to be here, or she needed to have a representative that had the kinds of power, veto power, and other power that she carries herself. So, her not being here, her not being aware of all of the things that were required of her, I think she made a mistake, and we asked her to do things that were not unreasonable, but because she wasn't here, she wasn't aware of some of those things, and so it ended up falling through. And I'm not sure of all of them myself, Chris, but I know that it wasn't the city that caused this business not to be successul.
Right.
It was more her doing than it was ours.
I am going to challenge the city. I'm going to challenge you, Ben, because I want to wrap this back into crime. Okay. North Omaha has an abundance, a plethora, if you will, of abandoned homes, homes that should be torn down, which in them of themselves create havens. And you and I both know that. For drugs, for crimes, for a lot of things. When is the city going to, and I know the city council passed a budget to increase the funding so that they can tear down more homes. In my opinion, I don't think that's serious enough. When is the city going to be serious about getting some of these homes torn down so that those that still remain in those neighborhoods can regain their pride?
It's not all about the city doing this or that. It's about creating an atmosphere so that the private sector can do some things. Let me give you an example. Yeah, there are a number of houses that need to be that need to be either torn down or rehabbed.
Okay, let's be honest. It's not just a number. It's a large.
It's a large number.
Okay.
But the way you eat into that is with this one group now that's working with NIFA, and they've identified 70 homes that they're going to rehab. And I'm talking about serious rehab. I'm talking about 70,
tear
80.
Down? You're talking about.
I'm talking about rehab. Okay. I'm not talking about tearing down.
Okay.
And allowing families to rent them at no more than $650, $675 a month to rent. If they sign a letter of intent to purchase, if they live in that house for 15 years, $25 a week, $25 a month will be taken out of their rent and go towards the purchase of that home. In 15 years, they will be able to purchase that home for $9,000 minus what they put in with those $25. So they're going to be able to own a home in 15 years that they have slowly paid into, that has been renovated completely, that they can purchase and own and have that pride of ownership. it's not so much about what the city does, but it's what the city causes to happen with its policies. And that's the thing we've got to recognize. The city's not going to do everything. The city can't do everything. And we're not going to tear down the 600 houses that need to be torn down. I mean, we just can't get to it. There's not enough money there.
Okay.
But what we can do is we can pass a law that creates closed property opportunities, so that if some of these abandoned homes or empty lots, neighbors see some activity that they find questionable, police can go in with a closed property, where there's a closed property sign, and investigate immediately, because they either have had the landlord's approval or we couldn't find the landlord, and so the city put up the closed property sign. But the closed property sign gives the police officer the opportunity to go on that property right away, if neighbors suspect suspicious activity.
Okay.
So there are a number of things that we've done in place, but it's all about the city setting the stage, not necessarily doing the work, but
that
setting
ordinance
the stage.
hasn't happened yet.
Yes, it has.
Okay.
We passed that ordinance.
Okay. Do the neighborhood do the neighbors know that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the neighbor's bill.
Okay. So it kind of came up from the
it bubbled up from the neighbor. It bubbled up from the neighborhood associations, north and south. That's where this bubbled up.
Right, good.
It was not something that came out of my head. It was not something I created. It's not something I came on that I wanted to do. It was listening to the neighbors. What do y'all want to see? This is yours. What do you want to see in your neighborhood? And these were the things that bubbled up, and these were the efforts that we engaged in to pass the laws. We have that closed property law now. We have another law that came up from the neighbors. It was not something that they went out and did the research and wrote an ordinance. Imagine citizens writing an ordinance, but they wrote an alcohol ordinance, and while it was, and while it needed a significant amount of tweaking, to have neighbors do that,
I think that's the best form of government.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want to thank you, Ben. We could go on and on. There's a lot of issues I know that you're dealing with in North Omaha. I wish we had more time, but I do want to appreciate you coming in with us. And we've kind of came full circle. We talked about the gun violence. We talked about and how that affects our North Omaha communities. But like Ben said, it's not just a North Omaha problem. It's an Omaha problem. So, and we've kind of wrapped it out. So there are things that you and the city council are working on to bring back not only North Omaha, but a lot of different parts of our neighborhood. And we appreciate your help. Appreciate your time. I want to thank Ben Gray, city councilman from Omaha's 2nd District. Also want to thank, for consideration, our good friend Tom Mulligan and Franklin Thompson, who wanted to be here, but unfortunately schedules didn't allow, and we're glad that Ben was here. So when we come back, we're going to be talking, we're going to do some more stuff about North Omaha in the rest of this episode. So thank you, Ben, and we'll be back.
The Midwest Ovarian Cancer Association mission is to support women diagnosed with ovarian cancer, to educate the public about the disease, and to support research. Currently, most women diagnosed with ovarian cancer have advanced disease and require prolonged medical treatment. Our goal at MOCA is to see fewer women diagnosed in advanced stages and to assure all women the availability of support and access to information. Please support these efforts by liking us on Facebook.
Do you know about 211? It's help for an elderly relative or a troubled teen, family counseling, or job training. Instead of hunting for phone numbers, dial 211. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, talk to someone who will find the local information you need. United Way and its statewide partners want you to get connected and get answers. Dial 211 or go online at ne211.org.
On Friday, April 19th, the Salvation Army Women's Auxiliary will hold its annual Taste and Treasures Evening of Fun, Food, and Philanthropy event to benefit the projects and programs of the Salvation Army of Omaha. Join us at the Field Club of Omaha for 6 p.m. appetizers and 7:15 p.m. dinner, along with silent and live auctions, entertainment, and much, much more. For ticket information, please contact Karen Jacoby at 402-505-4432.
like me. Like me.
Like us.
For just $30 a year, I can get
A healthy meal.
homework help, exercise, a safe place to stay after school every day. At one of our 8 clubs. My name is Janelle.
And I am the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club. We are the Boys and Girls Club.
Like us on Facebook at BGC Midlands. Cox will donate $1 to the Boys and Girls Club.
For 45 years, Family Housing Advisory Services has been improving quality of life by helping people achieve housing and financial stability. FAS prevents homelessness, educates homeowners, provides foreclosure prevention options, develops financially wise consumers, offers affordable mortgage lending options, eliminates housing discrimination, and reduces poverty. Programs and services include homebuyer education, tenant services, financial management, tax assistance, homeowner finance, and fair housing. For more information, call 402-934-7921.